Welcome to another video. In this video I'm going to be hooking up a fuel pump relay on my Walbro on my B6 S4. Before moving on, if you're curious on how to remove the OEM fuel pump and install a Walbro fuel pump, there's I made a video of that a while ago, and also that link to that video will be down there in the description. And also I did another video over here, also linked down in the description, is upgrading my Walbro pump to a stronger Walbro pump as well. Jeez, if I can pronounce the name correctly. As already mentioned, I'm going to be installing a fuel pump relay, and again, this is a DeatschWerks, and again, it can be any brand. I just got this brand just because I got it, because I kind of got this because my injectors are also DeatschWerks, so I figured I'll just stick with the same brand. But I mean, any fuel pump relay you can get from, even Amazon, it should all literally do the same exact thing. For the first part of the video, I'm going to actually show you guys a diagram that I drew out when it comes to how to wire the fuel pump relay. And then the last part of the video will all be obviously the installation of the fuel pump relay. And once that's all installed, I want to mention one more thing, and it involves the fuse. So I'll go into more detail later in the video. As the car sits right now, this is the OEM setup. So the battery powers the ECU, and the ECU has the green-yellow wire that then powers the pump, and then the pump's connected to the ground that connects to the ECU. So it's very basic how the OEM setup is right now. And now this is with the relay now. So I know it's a little bit confusing, but let me explain. So originally, kind of how it was originally, again, here's the battery, no difference. The ECU still no difference, even though the relay is now, added to this equation or this loop now, the ECU still plays a part. So the only thing that's different, so if you can remember in the last diagram I showed you guys, the green-yellow wire would connect to the pump, but what's going to happen, you're going to cut the green-yellow wire, and this is where the fuel relay is going to be added now. So the blue wire is going to connect to the green-yellow that's going towards the ECU, and then the red wire is going to connect still to the green-yellow, but going towards the direction of the pump. As far as the ground for the pump, which is the brown wire, that still stays the same. That doesn't change. Now, since I already talked about the yellow wire, I know it's red, but I don't have a yellow pen, so red is in this example. So now the red wire that goes from the relay has the 30 amp fuse, which now connects to the battery, and then the ground part for the relay just goes to any ground, or if you want, you can also connect it straight back to the battery as well on the negative terminal. That's really all it is, just cutting this green-yellow wire, and then the red wire going to the pump, and then the blue wire going towards the ECU. Now I'm going to go ahead and talk about what do these numbers mean right here. So on the relay itself, if I'm going to post a little screenshot here on the corner with a better image of the relays where you can see the numerization. So going from left to right in really no particular order. So the number 85 is for the ground. So that's what the 85 is for. The yellow wire goes by 87, so that's what the 87 is for. The blue wire, which is the trigger wire, is 86. And the red wire that has the 30 amp fuse that connects to the battery is numbered 30. And when looking directly at just the relay itself, there's the numbers 86, 87, 85, and 30. So 30, it goes to the battery directly, what there's a 30 amp fuse in line with here. 86 is the switch / the trigger line, which connects towards the ECU side. 87 connects the pump, which powers the pump, and 85 is just ground. Quick, when it comes to connecting this back together, there's only one way this connects. There's absolutely no way you can try to, accidentally, get this connected the wrong way. Like, even if you try to force it in, like, it just doesn't connect. So the way that these are, these little prongs here are lined up, it only goes one way with the harness, or with the wiring harness right here. So don't have to worry about messing that up. Now I'm going to talk about how does all this thing work. So what's going to happen is, so you're sitting in the car, you turn the key into the on position. So obviously there's going to be a voltage going from the battery to the ECU, and then the ECU is going to send voltage through this green yellow wire down to this blue wire that we just connected to the relay. And inside the relay, once it gets that signal, what's going to happen is it's going to connect a bridge between this red wire that's connected to the battery to now this yellow wire, which goes to the pump. So once it gets the signal to relay, it's going to flip a breaker or a switch. Now this is going to make continuity now. So from the battery to the pump is now going to have power to the pump. So that's how this relay works. So it's getting all its power from the battery, as before it was getting power from the ECU to the pump. Here is the fuel pump relay all in its glory. So here you can see that the blue and the yellow wire are fairly short. The black wire, which is the ground, is fairly long, but the red wire is definitely long, and then the fuse is here towards the end of the line, but this is like super long right here. So as mentioned with my setup, what I'm gonna do is obviously have this close to, because I only have this much length for where the fuel pump whatnot and the switch goes. So I'm gonna cut this red wire to length because I don't need all of this. This is like a lot of red wire, especially since it's gonna be towards the back of the car. So again, I'm gonna cut this to length, and then the ground, definitely I'll probably cut that to length. So I went ahead and removed the cover of the fuel pump, and again, it's just 3 bolts and just the cover. Fairly simple. In order so I can remove this, because this is kind of like tucked in, so you just push this out, and now I have a little bit more wiggle room with the harness, the OEM harness side. So again, where I'm going to be having to splice into is one of 2 of these wires right here. Okay, so I removed the tape, cleaned it up, all the little sticky residue from the tape from the factory pretty much. So the one wire I'm looking for is this one right here that I'm talking about, which is the green yellow wire right here. So this is where I'm gonna cut and splice my relay into. Point of no return. Here's about halfway. Here we go. All right, it's done. So now I'm gonna go ahead and strip this wire so I have the copper exposed, and the same thing on this side as well. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go on a slight detour, but in a perfect world, I wanna go ahead and explain to you guys how this is gonna work. So I'll go into detail here in a little bit, but so this yellow wire, this yellow side, will splice into the green yellow going towards the fuel pump. All right, and then the blue wire, which is the trigger, is also going to connect to the green yellow wire, but that's going to be connected towards the ECU side. So it's going to kind of look something like this. So the slight detour I have to take is because the trigger wire and the hot wire for the fuel pump are very short, and this is how it came to me. So I don't know if this was meant to be on purpose or it was by accident. These arrived shorter. I'm going to have to add more length to these wires, because if I were to splice them as is right now, there's really no good spot for me to put this relay or tuck it in. And I don't want to tuck it in like on the back seat. I want this to be a lot more closer towards the battery. So because I'm going to improvise here, because I have so much of this red wire, I'm actually going to use the red wire. So I'm going to slice it, and then I'm going to use, connect, the red wire, the yellow. I'm going to connect the red wire here and splice it into here, and then I'll use the red wire again, connect it to the blue wire, and then the red wire will come and connect to here. So hopefully this makes sense once I said and done, because I really want this to be close to the battery and not have this, in this generator. And that's just with this relay. I can't really speak. I'm sure with other relays there might be, these wires might be slightly longer. So I'm going to go on a slight detour. So I'm going to do that slight modification, then I'll come back and explain to you guys literally and show you guys what I did. Okay, so here is the update. So I ended up cutting some wires from the original relay. So from the last clip, you can remember the blue wire, which is the trigger, was short. So was the yellow wire, which is the hot wire to the pump, was short. So I ended up cutting the red wire, that connects to the battery, a lot shorter. So you can see I cut it, sliced it, and I still have the 30 amp fuse in line. Then I connected a little connector that will connect towards the battery. So with the extra red wire, because now it's obviously way shorter now as in the last scene, I added it to the blue and the yellow wire. So what I ended up doing, so I don't like confuse myself because they're both red, so with the yellow wire, which is the hot wire, I put white electrical tape, and at the very end I have a little white, so I know the difference. So I know when it's time to connect it to the harness, that I don't mix it up the wires. And then obviously with the black wire, I just left it blank, no tape at all on this end, and I cut it to roughly what I think will be about good enough length. But again, once I have a good idea whereabouts I'm going to connect the relay, then I'll definitely cut this a little bit more shorter if I need to. And as far as the ground wire goes, I haven't cut that out yet. So I'm going to leave the ground wire till the very end. And here, just to confirm that the yellow wire, which going to the fuel pump, is white. This end right here is white, and then the blue wire, which I have it marked as black, but again, I didn't put any tape on this end because no need to, as long as that one is marked from this one. So yeah, so this is pretty much right here the overall setup. So now I'm going to go ahead and splice that into the harness now. Okay, so here is the update. So again, both of these are red wires. Not really ideal for, in a perfect world, but when life gives you lemons, you make orange juice, right? So again, the yellow, so this is on the other side in the trunk. This is where the yellow wire is connected to. And again, the yellow wire sends voltage or power to the fuel pump, so this is towards the fuel pump side. And then the blue wire, which is the trigger wire, that is connected towards the ECU side. So yeah, so this is pretty much really the kind of slight curveball I have to take. And again, I can't really speak this for all the fuel relays, because there might be fuel relays where those wire, like the trigger and the power wire to the fuel pump, are actually longer. But just with this kit, it just ended up being shorter for me, and I didn't like the location of, if I left it as is, where the fuel relay will have to be, which would have to be tucked in somewhere over here. Now I wasn't okay with that. I wanted it to be easy access for me to, for whatever odd reason, if I need to access it, because I don't want to have to remove the back seat just to access that fuel relay. But yeah, so this is really the hardest part of this install, really, is just kind of going through what I have to do. But I hope this makes sense. All right, so further updates, I put the cover back on. I put the little kind of like where the harness connects to, so I just went ahead and just wrapped this up with electrical tape, and also down here at the bottom, I left the white part slightly exposed, so I know that for any future reference, or for whatever odd reason, I know that this is going to be my power to the fuel pump. And then this black part right here, I just wrapped it up in the black electrical tape, so I know that this goes towards, this is my signal switch wire that goes to the ECU. Now, as far as the ground wire goes, so I have the black wire right here, and I don't know if you can see it, but right here is where I connected my ground wire right there to the seatbelt harness. So that's I feel like that's a pretty good secure spot to put my ground wire right there. So all that's left now is the part that connects to the battery, and there it is. So I have the hot side, the power connected to the battery. And right now I have my fuel relay kind of like up in the air right now and loose, but at a later time I'm gonna go ahead and just figure out, you know, at a later time where to place the fuel relay. But just for the purpose of this video, not to make this video any longer, this is really the process on hooking up a fuel pump relay, or any type of relay really that you need to do. If you remember towards the beginning of the video, I was talking about like the fuse, about the OEM fuse, and then the fuse that goes to the relay. So this is something I really want to talk about now. So from the factory, the relay is actually here on the side panel, here on the driver's side, and it's spot number 28. It's right 28, so right here where my thumb is. So that is the original fuse for the fuel pump when it's OEM wiring, how it was before. But now with the fuel pump relay, and for the fuel pump relay I also have a fuse here as well. So this is again a 30 amp, and then the OEM over by the driver's side, that's a 20 amp fuse. So here's a scenario as to why you still will need both of the fuses, the fuse that's on the ECU part, and obviously the fuse that's on the relay part. And the reason why you still need the fuse is because when you turn on the power, you know, that fuse that's on towards the ECU part is what's connecting the bridge right here from this side of the wire to the ECU side of the wire. Because if you remove that fuse, because thinking now that, you know, you have a relay and this has a fuse, that you don't need this, it's what's going to happen is you're not going to send the signal from the ECU to the relay. So you're going to be cranking the engine and nothing's going to happen, because the ECU is not sending a signal to the relay to make that connection between this yellow cable wire that goes to the pump from this red wire that goes to the battery. So that connection is not going to be made because it's not receiving the signal from the ECU, because that fuse is now removed. So you will still need both of the fuses. So now I'm going to give you guys a scenario where, like, say, and this is actually going to happen to me here in a while, where you need to crank the engine. Normally when you crank the engine, you remove the fuse from the ECU that connects to the pump with the OEM style, so if you have the OEM setup, because what you want to do is you want to crank the engine so that the oil that's been sitting in the engine, or if you put in new oil, you want that oil to circulate through the engine. I hope you guys knew that. If not, well, now you know. So the three scenarios I'm going to talk about if you need to crank the engine so you can prime the engine with oil is, which one? Scenario 1, do you just removing just the fuse from the ECU side? Scenario 2, just removing the fuse from the relay side, or scenario number 3, you remove both of the fuses. So let's say in scenario 1 you need to crank the engine, and I already kind of talked about this briefly in a while ago. If you remove just the fuse from the green-yellow wire from the ECU side, that's still going to work, because you're not going to send the pump's not going to be activated, because if you remember what I said last time is when you remove the fuse from here, it's going to connect, it's going to be this circuit right here is going to be broken, or it's going to be open actually. So when you turn on the key to crank the engine, there's no fuse here, so there's no way the ECU can send that signal to the relay. So you're cranking the engine, and then it's going to be fine if you have this fuse still, because there is no connection going happening right here because that fuse is removed. Now scenario number 2, so say you leave the fuse in, that's towards the ECU side and the green-yellow side, and now you just remove the fuse that's from the relay side, which is this red wire. So say you do remove that. So when you turn on the car to crank the car, the ECU is going to send the signal to the relay, and then the relay is going to make that bridge connection between the yellow wire and the red wire, but it's not going to get the voltage that it needs to power up the pump, because now this connection right here, this is now open circuit now, so there's no voltage going to the relay. So even though they made the little clicky sound to connect these two, this connection right here, but there's no voltage going to the relay, within which goes to the pump. So in other words, this scenario also works when you crank the engine so you can prime the engine to get oil circulated. And now scenario number 3. So pretty much scenario number 3 is pretty much adding scenario 1 and scenario 2 together. So remember, so now that the the fuse from the green yellow wire is removed, and then the fuse from the relay side is removed. So say you turn on the ignition, well, it's not gonna send the signal to the relay, so the relay is not gonna do anything. And on top of that, it's not gonna send the voltage from the battery to the relay, and it goes to the pump, because again, the relay is not getting the signal. And even if it did get the signal, which it won't in this scenario, it's still the connection between here and here. So it's kind of like a double whammy in a way. It's kind of like slightly overkill, but so all three scenarios are actually correct way to do it. So if you wanted to crank the engine without starting the engine, because you don't want the pump to be running, you can either, one, like I said before, just remove just the fuse from the ECU, or scenario 2, you can just remove just the fuse from the relay side, or number 3, if you just want to just be extra cautious or extra safety, you can go ahead and remove both of the fuses. Of course, those three scenarios, none of them is right or wrong. They're all right, but just, scenario 3 requires a little bit of work because you'll have to take, one or both of the fuses out. That will be the end of the video. I hope you guys learned something new, because I know I did, especially with that little curveball I had with the fuel pump relay. But either way, I learned something new, worked around it, was able to figure out, to be able to place the fuel pump relay in a position, in a location where I want it to be, given with the length of the cables that I had. So with that being said, I hope you guys learned something new, and I hope you guys enjoy the video, and you guys have a good one. Thanks.